शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। वञ्जनानन्दनं वीरं जानकी शोकनाशनं कपीशमक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लङ्काभयङ्करम्। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Namaskaram all of you. Welcome to the 33rd session of Narayaniyam for Dasakam 22, in which Bhattadiri gives a condensed version of Ajāmiڵa. The story of Ajāmiڵa exemplifies the oft-repeated truth that most effective atonement for one's sins is the chanting of Bhagavan Nama or the Lord's names. Unlike other means of atonement which can destroy only specific sins, utterance of the Lord's names destroys not only the sins one has accumulated in one's various births, but even one's tendencies to commit sinful acts in the future. Andal did her magnum opus Thirupavai, part of Nalayira Divya Prabandham, as commonly known. She did 30 pasurams which constitute Thirupavai. They are also known as pearls of wisdom and they give us the quintessence of Vedas. Therefore, the work is deemed by great scholars and acharyas and saints who followed Andal for the last 12-13 centuries, seed of Vedas. Vedam anaithukum vittagum. Andal's consistent advice through her poetry is Namasankirtanam and Namasmaranam, and she considers these two are the ultimate upaya for existence and salvation of human beings. In her 5th Pasuram in Thirupavai, she says, Mayanai mannu Vadamadurai Maidanai Mayanai mannu Vadamadurai Maidanai Tuya Peru Yamunai Turai Ivanai Tuya Peru Yamunai Turai Ivanai வந்து நாம் தூமலர் மொழி தொழுந்து வந்து நாம் தூமலர் மொழி தொழுந்து வாயினால் சிறுதிக வாயினால் பிழையும் மாயனை மன்னு வடமதுரை மைந்தனை தூய பெருநீர் யமுனை துறைவனை ஆயர்குலத்தினில் தோன்றும் மணிவிளக்கை தாயை குடல் விளக்கம் செய்த தாமோதரனை துயமாய் வந்து நாம் தூமலர் தூவித் தொழுது வாயினால் பாடி மனத்தினால் சிந்திக்க போய பிழையும் புகுதருவான் நின்றனவும் தீயினில் தூசாகும் செப்பேலோர் எம்பாவாய். Say the name of Mayan, the veritable son of Vadamudurai, Bhagavan who lived near and glorified the sacred river Yamuna, who happens to be the scion of Yadukulam, the little boy of Yashoda who exalted the status of his mother Yashoda by allowing himself to be bound by a worn-out robe and became Damodara. O my friends, come with a pure heart, offer softly worthy flowers, sing his praise since mouth is given only for that purpose, and think only about him since you got birth for that sole purpose only. He will for sure burn off all your past karma and even your future sins committed unawares, and they will so be destroyed like cotton dust by fire. Bhattadri seems influenced by Kulashekara, who lived around 800 Common Era. In his Mukundamala, Alvar says, Jihve kirtaya keshavam muraripum cheto bhajashridaram. Jihve kirtaya keshavam, Jihve kirtaya keshavam muraripum cheto bhajashridaram. Pani dvandva samarchaya achyutagada. Pani dvandva samarchaya achyutagada. Shrotradvayatvam shrunu Krishnam lokaya lojanadvayagare. Kajjangri yugmalayam jigragrana mukunda pada tulasim. Murdan nama adokshajam jigragrana mukunda pada tulasim. Murdan nama adokshajam. Murdan nama adokshajam. Jihve kirtaya keshavam muraripum chedo bhaja sridaram. Pani dvandva samarchaya achyutagataha stotra dvayatvam srunu. Krishnam lokaya locanadvayahare gachangri yugmalayam jigragrana mukunda pada tulasim murdhan nama adokshajam. O tongue, praise the glories of Lord Keshava. O mind, worship the enemy of Mura. O hands, serve the Lord of Shri. O ears, hear the topics of Lord Achyuta. Krishnam loke locanadvaya harehe gachangri yugmalayam. O eyes, gaze upon Sri Krishna. O feet, go to the temple of Lord Sri Hari. Jigra grana mukunda pada tulasim murdhan nama adokshajam. O nose, smell the tulasi buds on Lord Mukunda's feet. O head, bow down, Lord Adokshaja. Another great saint born with the name of Marunikiyar, who lived between 570 to 650 Common Era, and later as Tirunavukarashar, was hailed as Upper Biran, one of the greatest Saivite saints. He is revered by devout Tamils as the head of the 63 Nayanmars or Nayanars, and as one of the greatest poets who contributed to the Panniru Tirumurai, they call it, or 12 Tirumurai. In the 4th Tirumurai, in a section known as Thiru Angamalai, Upper Biran sings 12 poems instructing the limbs of a human to do the worship as ordained by Bhagavan. The composition is long, but I will highlight only the specific first lines of the 7 pasurams, which are almost identical to what Kulashekara said in his Mukundamala. Talaye ni vanangai, கண்கால் காண்மிங்களோ கடல் நஞ்சுண்ட கண்டன் தன்னை செவிகால் கேண்மிங்களோ சிவன் எம்மிரை மூக்கே நீ முரலாய் முக்கண்ணனை. வாயே வாழ்த்து கண்டாய் ஆடும் பிரான் தன்னை நெஞ்சே நீ நினையாய் மங்கை மணாளனை கைகால் கூப்பித்தொழீர் பரமனை. Put all your limbs to his service and only his service, because they were only created for that particular benefit. The remaining 5 pasurams in their group highlight the futility of those limbs when not used in the service of Lord Supreme. They also emphasize that those limbs would become useless at the critical time of reckoning if they are not put to effective use for worshipping the Lord. The 10th Pasuram by Upper Piran in this specific group summarizes it. உற்றார் ஆருளரோ உயிர் கொண்டு போகும்போது குற்றாலத்துறை கூத்தனல்லால் நமக்குற்றார் ஆருளரோ. Throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, there are descriptions of 10 subject matters, including creation, subsequent creation, and the planetary systems. Bhattadri followed Sukha-Brahmam, the reteller or speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, who has already described creation, subsequent creation, and the planetary systems in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th cantos of the greatest of Puranas. Now in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which consists of 19 chapters, Sukha narrates the greatness of Poshana, or the protection by the Lord of his devotees. The first chapter relates to the history of Ajāmiڵa, who was considered a sinful man by normal standards, but was liberated from mundane existence when 4 messengers of Lord Vishnu come finally to rescue him from the clutches of the messengers of Yamadharmaraja. A full description of how Ajāmiڵa was liberated and how he got relieved of the reactions of his sinful life is given in Srimad Bhagavata Purana. By Bhakti Yoga, one can completely avoid the tendency of becoming sinful. But this Bhakti has to be Suddha Bhakti, pure Bhakti, without any other motivation or seeking any benefit from the Supreme. Other methods are not that feasible. Therefore, the Vedic literature concludes that devotional service is more important than the methods of Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Only the path of devotional service is auspicious and easiest for everyone. Fruitive and karmic activities and speculative knowledge cannot independently liberate anyone. But Bhakti, the devotional service, independent of karma and jnana, is so potent that one who has fixed his mind at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna is guaranteed not to meet the Yamadutas even in one's dreams. Aduneha mahabhaga yataiva narakan naraha nanugra yatanan neyat tanme vyakyatum arhasi. This is the 6th canto, the 1st chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. O blessed and fortunate and opulent Sukha-Brahmam, now kindly tell me how human beings may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions in which they suffer terrible pains. The logical question here is from Parikshit. Parikshit is about to die in a handful of days. So why was he so worried? He knew very well that he is going to die anyway. Why should he be worried about mortals of Kali? The answer is simple. Maharaja Parikshit, being a Shuddha Bhakta, is a true Vaishnava and is Paradukka Dukhi. Whether he is going to die in a couple of days or not, this question is relevant for the benefit of all others. That is why we call him a true Vaishnava. Also Paradukka Dukhi. What is this term Paradukka Dukhi? The simple explanation comes from a song by Narsi Mehta, one of the greatest saints from Gujarat, who sang Vaishnava Janato Tene Kahiye Je Pidaparayi Jane Re. पर दुखे उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान ना आने रे।
वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए पीड़ पराई जाने रे। पर दुखे उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान नाणे रे। वैष्णव जन को पीड़ पराई जाने रे। सकल लोकमा सौरे वंदे निंदा न करे असजन बोले इस बात की असजन बोले अरघन नव जाले रात रे। वैष्णव जन को पीड़ पराई जाने रे। पर माया राम नाम ताड़ी लागी राम नाम सकल तीरथ के आंगन मारे। वैष्णव जन को वैष्णव जन को पढ़ लो दीने कपट रहित से पढ़ लो दीने कपट रहित से काम क्रोधी माया है। बड़ नरसैयो तेरे दर्शन करता नरसैयो तेरे दर्शन करता उड़े को कहता रे। वैष्णव जन को तेरे कहिए
Swami Narasimhata says he is a Vaishnava who feels the pain of others, Paradukka Dukhi. A Vaishnava is one who feels the pain of others, helps those who are in misery, but never lets self-conceit enter their mind. Parikshit at that point, waiting to join Paramatma any day, has no personal troubles, but he was very unhappy to see others in trouble get the elevation and salvation. Prahlada Maharaja said the same thing to Narasimha. Oh Bhagavane, I have no personal problems because I have now learned how to glorify your spiritual qualities, transcendental mode, and thus enter a trance of ecstasy myself. But I do have a problem, however, for I am simply thinking of those fools who are busy with Maya and Sukha caused by that Maya. In other words, temporary happiness without knowledge of bhakti unto you. In fact, this is the summary of problem faced by a Vaishnava. Sukha, being the guru of Parikshit, could have simply explained the principle of bhakti, but to evaluate his disciple, first prescribes atonement according to Karmaganda, the path of fruitive activities with all its elaborate 80 authorized scriptures such as Manu Samhita, which are known as Dharma Shastras. In these scriptures, one is advised to counteract one's sinful activities by performing other types of karmic or fruitive action. The Maharaja is very unhappy when he listened to that because he says that such a path is not going to be easy for all the mundane mortals, not only in this Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, O Sukhabrahmam, it is going to be definitely difficult, if not almost impossible, for mortals in Kali Yuga who will be constantly in pursuit of only material sukham. And there ensues the samvadam between Sukha and Parikshit. Sukha finally relents and smiles to say this much as an answer to Maharaja. Atra cha udaharanti imam idihasam puratanam dutanam Vishnu yamayoho sambadastam nibodave. Well, since you asked me that question and you are very unhappy about my earlier answers, O Rajan, learned scholars and saintly persons describe an incredibly old historical incident involving a samvadam or discussion between the messengers of Lord Vishnu and those of Yamaraja. That may answer your question, Maharaja. Please hear this from me. Let us stop here and proceed to Bhattadri. Let's see the story through the words of Bhattadri in this Dashakam 22.
Ajāmiڵa nama mahi surapura Ajāmiڵa nama mahi surapura Charan vivo dharmapadan vrikashrami Charan vivo dharmapadan vrikashrami Guru gira kananamitya drishtavan Sudrutta-sheelam kulatam madakulam Sudrutta-sheelam kulatam madakulam Kulatam madakulam
Ajāmiڵo nama Mahīsurapura charan vivo dharma patan grihashrami Kurorgira kananametya drishtavan Sudrutta-sheelam kulatam madakulam. Long ago, there was a Brahmana by name Ajāmiڵa. He was living in Kanyagubja, which is modern Kanauj. By nature, Ajāmiڵa was of a particularly good character. At the appropriate time, he became a householder, grihastha, and faithfully observed the rites of the sacred fire, did all the yaga yajna tapas, propitiating devas, sages, and Pitrus or means. He did everything that was expected of a Brahmana for his routine living. Once, as bidden by his father, Ajāmiڵa obediently went to the forest to collect sacrificial fuel and kusha grass for religious rites, Samit and Kusha. While returning home, he happened to see a drunken and shameless harlot engaged in amorous sport with her lover. The woman who was seen at the time with her youthful wiles and addiction to wine was one who was capable of seducing even the most discriminating and disciplined person, making those disciplined people deviate from the virtuous path and get drawn towards her. Because it was, first of all, her behavior, and the second is her bewitching beauty. These things are bound to attract any ordinary mortal. As such, there was no surprise in Ajāmiڵa falling into her trap and getting all at once infatuated with her. This is how Bhattadri makes the introduction. Two meanings of the name Ajāmiڵa are given from Puranic lore and lexicons as follows. Ajāmim, Akulinam Striyam Lati. Ajāmim Lati or Akulinam Striyam Lati Adatte. One who has taken to a woman of impure race. Ajaya, Avidyaya Milanam Yasya Saha. One who has lost his mind due to ignorance. Let's see the next slokam.
स्वतःप्रशान्तोऽपि तदाहृताशयः स्वधर्ममुत्सृज्य तया समारमन् अधर्मकारी दशमी भुवन् पुनः ददौ भवन्नामयुते सुते रतिम् नामयुते सुते रतिम्
Swataprashantopi tadahritāshayah swadharmamutsujya taya samarman adharmakari dasami bhavan punaha dadau bhavan namayute sute ratim. This particular raga Dharmaranjani is only seen in books, and this raga was used, the words that are seen in this slokam. But this is a janim of Maya Malagavla and so not difficult to handle. By nature, Ajāmiڵa was a man of self-control. He had never got involved in such malignant affairs. Yet, driven by extreme passion, he succumbed to carnality all of a sudden. Possessed by the devil of desire, excited by the sight of that lewd woman, he came under her spell totally. He started neglecting all his sacred obligations and regular duties of a Brahmana, left his old parents and his own lawful wife, who was still in the prime of youth, practically abandoned everything else and started running after this harlot and eventually started living with her. Ajāmiڵa indulged in carnal pleasures delightful to her mind so that she would be pleased with him always. He did not hesitate to earn money even by the foulest of means, because there were so many children he got from this harlot and he had to take care of them as well as this woman. And in course of time, Ajāmiڵa had, as he grew old, developed a strong attachment to his youngest son, who was having, "Oh Bhagavane, your name Narayana. Oh my Lord," he spent his time fondling his child, and he was delighted in watching him run around here and there and in his sports. Because his only passion, Ajāmiڵa's pastime and passion, became his youngest child named Narayana. Finally, time came for him to depart from this mortal world.
समृत्युकाले यमराज किङ्करन् समृत्युकाले यमराज किङ्करन् यमराज किङ्करन् समृत्युकाले यमराज किङ्करन् भयङ्करन् त्रीनभिलक्षयन् दिया समृत्युकाले यमराज किङ्करन् भयङ्करान् त्रीन् अभिलक्षयन् दिया पुरामनात् प्रकृतिवासना बलात् யுகாவநாராயண யுகாவநாராயண நாமகௌசுதம் யுகாவநாராயண நாமகௌசுதம்.
Samrityukale Yamaraja Kinkaran Bhayankaran Trin Abhilakshayan Biya Puramana Tvatsmriti Vasana Bhalat Juhavanarayana Namakam Sutam. Then the day arrived when Nemesis would overtake Ajāmiڵa, engrossed in unrighteous acts and strongly attached to the harlot's progeny. Ajāmiڵa saw in front of him, while on his deathbed, 3 hideouts and 3 hideous and fierce-looking emissaries of Yama, the god of death. The Yama Kinkaras were very gory to look at, but Ajāmiڵa was frightened because they were ready to take him to their master's abode, that is Dharmaraja's place. Usually people call that hell. Let's not use those kinds of words, but the Dutas were ready to take him to Yamadharmaraja so that he could do the final reckoning on Ajāmiڵa. Why did they do that? Because they came to do their duty befitting the sinful life Ajāmiڵa was leading. Overcome with fear and seeing them, Ajāmiڵa called out loud by name his darling son Narayana, who was busy with playing with boys of his own age at a distance. Why did Ajāmiڵa call his son, and that too aloud? Did he think that the boy would get frightened on seeing Yamadutas? Or did he want to see the sweet face of his dear son for one last time before being dragged away? Surely this might have prompted, but it was his love for the child that made him call aloud Narayana, because it came almost like a reflex reaction. The minute somebody confronted him, first thing that came to him was calling the child, "Oh, my Narayana." Another question that arises is how Ajāmiڵa, the great sinner that he was, became so fortunate so as to utter Bhagavan Nama at the time of death. Is it not sad that people steeped in ignorance in the form of worldly activities or in complete indolence, namely immersed in Rajas and Tamas, will not be able to remember the Lord's name, especially at the time of death? Is it not common? Let us set aside such doubts. Because Bhattadri points out the good and pious act of Ajāmiڵa, at least in the past. He was erudite, modest, and had observed all rituals ordained of a Brahmana for a Brahmana. Of course, his long association with the prostitute might have destroyed all but traces of his good and pious tendencies. It is these little vestiges of the faint memory of his past pure and devotional life that may have induced him to utter aloud the Lord's name, albeit unintentionally. This is how Bhattadri thinks the situation would have developed. Let us understand something here. Whether a sinner like Ajāmiڵa named his son Narayana or Shiva, Subramanya, Rama or Krishna or Devi or Kamakshi or Meenakshi, any of the namas of the Lord or Goddess, any of Bhagavan's thousands of namas or Archavatara Murtis namas, the effect would have been the same. Great saints aver that even sinners possess faint memories of Lord's name, albeit effortlessly and unintentionally.
வனனை மதிசூடியமைந்தனை தேனனை திருகண்ணாமலையனை வானனை மதிசூடியமைந்தனை தேனனை திருகண்ணாமலையனை எனனை இகழ்ந்தார் புறம் மூன்று எய்த ஆனனை அடியேன் மறந்து உய்வனோ அடியேன் மறந்து உய்வனோ அடியேன் மறந்து உய்வனோ உய்வனோ
வானனை மதிசூடிய மைந்தனை தேனனை திரு அண்ணாமலையானை ஏனனை இகழ்ந்தார் புறம் மூன்று எய்த ஆனனை அடியேன் மறந்து ஒய்வனோ. This poem is from Tirukkurundogai on Thiru Annamalaiappan by Appar Swamigal. Tirunavukkarasu Nayanar melts down when he calls the Jyoti Swarupa Lingam in Tirumurai. Vananai, one who pervades the space. Madishudiya Maindane, one who wears the crescent moon. Tenanai, who is as sweet as honey. Thiru Annamalayanai, who dwells in Thiruvannamalai Kshetram. ஏனனை இகழ்ந்தார் புறம் மூன்று எய்த ஆனனை, who destroyed the 3 cities of those who ridiculed him. அடியேன் மறந்து ஒய்வனோ. Can I exist if I forget him? One of the greatest Shivanadiyars, known as the second one amidst the 3 great saints in Tirumurai, தேவார மூவருள் இரண்டாம் அவர் என்று புகழ் பெற்றவர் அப்பர் பெருமான். He was one of the 63 Nayanmars named as Appar or the father by the other great saint known as Tirujnana Sambandar. Since Appar sang this poem in Tandaka Vrittam style, he was also known as Tandaka Vendar, the king of Tandakams. What was the effect of his calling aloud Sriman Narayana Bhagavan Nama at that hour? And what happened to Ajāmiڵa? Let us see that further.
Durājayasya vitadatva nirgata tvadīyanāmakṣaramātra vaibhavat purodhipetuhu bhavadīyapākṣadaha chaturbujaga pītapata manoharaga chaturbujaga pītapata manohara.
Durāsayasya api tadatva dirgata tvadīya nāmakṣara matra vaibhavat purobhivetuhu bhavadīya parshadaha chaturbhujaha pītapata manoharaha. The final word manoharaha prompted me to use a rare raga only seen from the books of musicology. This ragam Manohari is a janyam of Harikambodi. As we saw earlier, Ajāmiڵa did not utter the Lord's name with any devotion consciously. In fact, he did not even know that he was uttering the Lord's name. Also, he said it without fulfilling any of the primary requisites attendant to recitation of Bhagavan Nama, like devotion, total attention, clarity, and many other features attendant to Bhagavan Nama Uccharanam that are needed for chanting the Lord's name. In spite of all these, no sooner did he utter Narayana than the attendants of Lord Vishnu appeared at the scene instantly. They were not fierce looking like the Yamadutas, but were gentle and lovely in appearance, each one of them having 4 arms and wearing yellow garments, Pītāmbara Vasram, like their Bhagavan. It is purported that on the utterance of Bhagavan Nama, Mahavishnu's servants appeared to save Ajāmiڵa from the noose of death. Their action is described by Bhattadri in the next slokam.
Amcha sampasya vikarshata bhatan Amcha sampasya vikarshata bhatan Vimunchata iti ārudurbalatami Nivaritaha teja bhavajjani tada Tadiya papam nijilam nyavedayam Nivarita teja bhavajjani tada Tadiya papam nijilam nyavedayam.
Amumcha sampasya vikarshata bhatan vimunchata iti āruruduhu balad ami nivaritaha techa bhavajjanaihi tada tadiya papam nikilam navedayan. For clarity, let us do an anvayam of this particular slokam. The sloka can be split like this. Amumcha sampasya vikarshataha bhatan vimunchata iti ami balad āruruduhu tada techa Bhavajjanaihi nivaritaha Nikilam tadiya papam nyavedayan. When Bhagavan's attendants arrived, Ajāmiڵa was being dragged by Yamadutas with their nose. Seeing that, Narayana's attendants told Yama's servants to leave Ajāmiڵa and forcibly prevented them from doing their original duty. Thereupon, Yamaduta started narrating all the sins that Ajāmiڵa had committed and that they would accordingly take the sinner as per the orders from their master. Since Ajāmiڵa had not even atoned until then for any of the sins committed, and thereby they have been ordained to take him to Yama's abode, where he could be purified by punishment that he deserved. For this, there was a convincing reply given by Lord Narayana's messengers. Bhattathiri gives them in the next 4 stanzas. It is remarkably interesting that Bhattathiri had made the 4th line of the next 4 slokams, commencing with sloka number 6, the same. He made the last part of it saying, Iti Prabho Tvatpurushaha Babashire. Bhagavane, Iti Tvatpurushaha Babashire. O Prabho, this is the way your messengers taught. That's how Bhattathiri narrates the next 4 slokams. Bhattathiri's address of Bhagavan as Prabhu clearly indicates that Lord is all-powerful and his messengers would surely win over Yama's servants. The repetition of the last line emphasizes that the one and only medicine to destroy all sins and their impressions, namely the vasanas, gathered over a number of births on any human being, is the chanting of Bhagavan Nama, and that there is nothing superior to it for release from the cycle of life and death.
Bhavantu papani katantu niskrite krite vibho dandanamasti panditara na niskriti kim vidita bhavadrisam iti prabodvat purusha babashire.
Bhavantu papani katamtu niskrite kritepi bho dandanamasti panditaha na niskritihi kim vidita bhavadrisam iti prabodvat purusha babashire. Here we have to really do an anvayam of this slokam. Bho panditaha papani bhavantu niskrite kritepi katamtu dandanamasti bhavadrisam niskritihi na vidita kim iti he prabho tvat purusha babashire. Bhattathiri says, Oh Bhagavane, your messengers told Yama's servants that they were doing their duty as told, all right, but without discrimination. Understood. Ajāmiڵa could be a great sinner, but he had atoned for all his sins already. The Yamadutas were asking, how? We never heard that he ever atoned for his sins. Then Lord Narayana's messengers were repeating it, saying, hey, no. Ajāmiڵa had atoned for all his sins by simply uttering Bhagavan Nama Narayana once. For us, that is the catchword. That's why we are here. How could there be punishment after an atonement of that nature? Or was it that the servants of Yama did not know what atonement was? This is again the question and answer. By addressing Yama's emissaries sarcastically, Narayana's messengers called them Bo Panditaha, wise and learned. It appeared to be sarcastic reference to Yamadutas. The Lord's attendants were certainly emphasizing the ignorance of Yamadutas because they captured Ajāmiڵa despite the fact he uttered the name of Narayana. So the Lord's attendants continue their argument, differentiating between the atonement prescribed in the Vedic scriptures and all other laws for various sins from the atonement by chanting Bhagavan Nama.
Shruti smritibhyam vihita vratadaya punati papam na lunanti vasanayam ananta sevatu nikrintati dvayim iti prabho tatpurusha babashire iti prabho tatpurusha babashire iti prabho tatpurusha babashire.
Shruti-smritibhyam vihita-vratadaya punanti papam na lunanti vasanam ananta-sevatu nikrintati dvayam iti prabodvat purusha babashire. Vratadayaha vihitaha. Vows and the like prescribed. Smriti-smritibhyam punanti papam. By scriptures, shrutis and smritis, they do cleanse sins, all right. Tena lunanti vasanam. In other words, scriptures cleanse the sins, but they do not destroy the tendency to commit sin. They, all of them, na lunanti vasanam. Vasane yaralum pokkadikka mudiyadhu. They do not destroy the tendency to commit sin or more sins. Ananta sevadu nikrintati dvayam iti he prabho. Service of Lord Vishnu, however, destroys both. Thus, O all-powerful Lord, Tvat Purusha Babashire, your emissaries spoke. This is how Bhattadri addresses Bhagavan Guruvayurappa and says, your attendants spoke like this to the Yamadutas. What are Vratadeha, Vihitaha, which I mentioned now? Let us see the list of all of them. Various expiatory methods meant here by these two words, Vratadeha, Vihitaha, are Chandrayanam, which is a religious expiatory penance in which the daily intake of food consisting of 15 mouthfuls on full moon day is subsequently diminished by one mouthful every day during the dark fortnight until it is reduced to 0 on new moon day, and increased in the like manner during the bright light fortnight that goes after the new moon day. That is the Chandrayana ceremony. Reducing the food intake for 15 days and then increasing the food intake slowly. The next one is Tapta Kricham. It is a kind of penance in which the body is mortified with fire and heat. Tirtha Snanam, taking bath in various sacred rivers and lakes. Japaha, Japam. Japam means muttering prayer in an undertone all the time, with no other chintana. Homaha. Homam, this is a sacrifice offering oblations in sacred fire. And tapaha, finally, total meditation. Practice of personal self-denial and bodily mortification. All these methods are prescribed in the Vedas and traditional rules that follow. All of these have power only to destroy the sins and not destroying the propensity to do further sins again and again. Even if all sins are obliterated by the various vows and observances which we saw just now, one is likely to commit sins again because of impressions left in the mind by past deeds or vasanas. Therefore, these are not the most important methods of expiation. But by listening to Bhagavan's stories, chanting his nama, singing hymns glorifying him, doing kirtanam, meditating on him, dhyanam, and with devotion devoid of all desires, doing prostrations and circumambulations in his temples, and thus always engaging oneself in the thought of Bhagavan, one can neutralize all papam and destroy all future tendencies to commit any more papams. The minds of those engaged in the service of Bhagavan will be cleansed and purified forever only by that method, not the expiating methods. For such persons, there will be no occasion to commit sins because their minds get so purified that they won't even think of papam. Therefore, this is the highest form of atonement. That is the elaborate explanation of that sloka by Bhattadri.
Anena bhojanma sahasra kodibhihi kriteshu papeshvapi nishkriti krita. Anena bhojanma sahasra kodibhihi kriteshu papeshvapi nishkriti krita. यदग्रहीत नाम भयाकुलो हरे इति प्रभो त्वत्पुरुषा बभाषिरे इति प्रभो त्वत्पुरुषा बभाषिरे।
अनेन भो जन्म सहस्र कोटिभिः कृतेषु पापेष्वपि निष्कृतिः कृता यदग्रहीत नाम भयाकुलो हरे इति प्रभो त्वत्पुरुषा बभाषिरे। O servants of Yama, greatly frightened on seeing your terrible forms, this man, Ajāmiڵa, uttered, though in a helpless state, the name of Sri Hari, the four-syllabled name which you all heard, Narayana. Those four syllables have such a power. In his distress, he was calling out, maybe not God, but his favorite son. But you please remember this. This is what Narayana's Dutas tell Yamadutas. Even though he uttered without knowing it is Bhagavan Nama, by doing the very Nama which is Bhagavan's Nama without his effort, the man had done atonement not only for the sins of his life, but even for those who committed through millions of lives. As there is no trace of sin left in him at this point now, you have no right over him. He should not be punished. Srimad Bhagavatam has two beautiful slokams. In Canto 6, Chapter 2, slokas 9 and 10 are very relevant here. Stenaha surapo mitrudruk brahmaha guru talpakaha stri raja pitru go hanta yecha patakinaha apare sarveshamapi agavatam idameva sunishkritam nama vyaharanam vishnoho yatatat vishaya matihi. The chanting of the holy name of Bhagavan Vishnu is the best process of atonement for a thief, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a brahmana, or for one who commits adultery. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders woman, the king or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting from the heart in all purity the holy name of Bhagavan Vishnu sincerely for atonement, such sinful persons may attract the attention of Bhagavan, who then considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is here to reform him and then protect him. We will conclude our session today with some of the greatest verses from great souls in various languages on the Mahatmyam of Nama, Bhagavan Nama, which can make our life smooth sailing.
Hari Hari Rama Rama Nanna Rama Rajudaku Hari Hari Rama Rama Nanna Rama Rajudaku Hari Hari Rama Nama 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 Nanna Rama Rajudaku Niratamuni Nama Smaranaye Maranu Niratamuni Nama Smaranaye Maranu Hari Hari Rama Nama Nanna Rama Rajudaku Hari Hari Rama Nama Nanna Rama Rajudaku Niratamuni Nama Smaranaye Maranu Niratamuni Nama Smaranaye Maranu Niratamuni Nama Smaranaye Maranu Niratamuni Nama Smaranaye Maranu Dasharatha Nandana Dashamukha Mardana 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 Pashupati Ranjana Papa Vimochana Pashupati Ranjana Papa पशुपति रंजना पाप विमोचना
पशुपति रंजना पाप विमोचना
मणिमय भूषण मंजुल भाषण
मणिमय भूषण मंजुल भाषण
रणजय भीषण रघुकुल दूषण
रणजय भीषण रघुकुल भूषण
रणजय भीषण रघुकुल भूषण
रणजय भीषण रघुकुल भूषण
पतिता पावन नाम भद्राचल राम
पतिता पावन नाम भद्राचल धाम
पतिता पावन नाम भद्राचल राम
पतिता पावन नाम भद्राचल धाम
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 पतिता पावन नाम भद्राचल धाम पतिता
पावन नाम भद्राचल धाम
सततम श्री राम दासु नेलुमा
सततम श्री राम दासु
सततम श्री राम दासु नेलुमा सततम
श्री राम दासु
सततम श्री राम दासु नेलुमा
सततम श्री राम दासु
सततम श्री राम दासु नेलुमा
सततम श्री राम दासु
सततम श्री राम दासु नेलुमा
सततम श्री राम दासु
हरि हरि राम नाम हरि हरि राम नाम हरि हरि राम
नाम
हरि हरि राम नाम हरि हरि राम नाम नरमर जूडगुण
नरमर जूडगु
निरतमुनि नाम स्मरणये मरनु
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 ஊனில் மேய ஆவினி உறக்கமாடுணர்ச்சினி உனில் மேய ஆவினி உறக்கமாடுணர்ச்சினி ஆனில் மேய ஐந்தும் நீ அவற்றுள் நின்ற தூய்மை நீ வானினொடு மண்ணும் நீ வளங்கடல் பயனும் நீ யானும் நீ அதன்றி எம்பிரானோ நீ ராமனே ஊனில் மேய ஆவினி உறக்கமோடுணர்ச்சினி ஆனில் மேய ஐந்தும் நீ அவற்றுள் நின்ற தூய்மை வானினொடு மண்ணும் நீ வளங்கடல் பயனும் நீ யானும் நீ அதன்றி எம்பிரானும் நீ ராமனே ராமனே நாராயண 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 ஹரே கிருஷ்ணா குருவாயூரப்பா